Alright, here we go. Taking a look at another team game. These are two of the teams that are going to be participating in the upcoming tournament, so it will be interesting to see what their strategies are and how they can work together. Most of the time, I should point out, we have been seeing either one expansive plus one non-expansive steel user, so a robot or a scientist, or double scavenger. Those are the two big things that I have been seeing for the most part. They seem to work pretty well, and they have a fairly clear goal in mind. The double scavenger is just if carbon is good, which in this case, Roller and PB Head both decided, well, okay, carbon is good, we're going to go double scavenger, and just completely rely on that carbon resource, whereas the expansive plus non-expansive steel user kind of has the basic idea of, well, robots can upgrade quickly and that's helpful, but expansive players, they're the ones you're really feeding because their off-world markets are so cheap. They cost that 200 steel less for that off-world, and they also cost less steel when they've upgraded, and their upgrades are very, very good. So you just kind of feed that expansive player, and then they take over, and they're your primary colony. Excuse me, this is what I'm talking about with my voice, guys. And the non-expansive player is your support colony. Now, in this case, we don't have that. It's just double robot against double scavenger. And that makes me worried for the robots. As you can see, no Goon Squad's been purchased yet. And the robots are going to be relying very, very heavily on these steel mills to stay active in the short term. And I don't know exactly how that's going to go, because the scavengers should have enough money to go ahead and just shut down this basic little area pretty quickly, and no steel production from a power surge shutdown on these steel mills for that long could be very, very painful for the scavengers. Also, they're going to be dependent on keeping these solar panels active, making sure that Gameslayer can keep making money from them. But so far, they haven't gotten punished at all. So it might work out okay for them. But long term, we do have a usable black market over here by the scavengers. It's not great. It's not really what they want to see. But it is something that can work. And so we're going to have to see how that goes long term. Ooh, shortage on silicon coming up. That is exactly the kind of thing that Gameslayer would love to see. If he could see it right now, he might have noticed that spike in silicon pricing and maybe expect that it's on the way, because he is sitting on an awful lot of silicon at the moment. And it'll be nice for him if he can manage to sell that down and actually make some cash out of it. Let's see. What else are we looking at over here? It's hard to see exactly how resources are getting split up and shared. I don't know if I can actually jump between players easily. I think this is actually like PB Head / Roller's stockpile right now. Can I not observe easily a team game and see all the different perspectives? I don't think I can, because I can't switch between them the way I used to. Hold on, I think I know what I can do. Ah, we got it. It's a little bit awkward to figure out because, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. So 1 doesn't do anything. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we've got it. Now it's functional. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's how we can swap between the players these days. Guys, this is why I'm wanting to do this before we get to the tournament. I kind of vaguely knew that was there. I didn't know I couldn't use the old system to swap between things still. So here we go. Here we've got Gameslayer's resources, and obviously Saberman's resources are going to, you know, be very, very similar to that. We can see what's being shared over here. It's just chems not being shared by these two players at this point. An interesting decision to share power, in my opinion, early on. Given that it just creates a bit of a weird scenario. I suppose it should be fine. You're still going to make plenty of money from Gameslayer's power. It's just maybe he could eke out a bit more not having to pay for Saberman's power. Just that sort of thing is an important thing to keep track of. It'll be interesting to see how players work around power and sharing it throughout the tournament. Whereas over in PB Head / Roller Land, who I believe are Nope, we're back to 1 not doing anything again. There we go. 2, 3, 4, 5 is what's working for us right now. Which makes sense. I guess I would be number 1. Guys, this is complicated. And a little bit silly. But I think I understand where we're going with it right now. So PB Head and Roller, they aren't sharing power at all between each other. PB Head is not sharing food. Or is sharing food. Roller is not sharing food. Which makes sense, given that Roller is going to be wanting to make money on food. And this, I think, while we're not actually talking about the game, we can talk about actual mechanics of a team in this game. The idea of not sharing your life support resource that you're trying to make money off of is kind of an important one, at least for somebody on your team. Preferably, in my opinion, you're going to have one guy on your team who doesn't have debt. That guy builds a pleasure dome, for one thing, which we can see we've got one here, which is going to be an all-right pleasure dome because there are 2 scavengers in the game. But it's not going to be great because there are 2 robots in the game. Just something to think about. So you're going to want one guy who's going to want to build a pleasure dome and potentially be able to make money off of power easily. And that'll be your no-debt guy. And so the other guy can maybe share life support with him just to help keep him out of debt because that translates into money for him anyways. But the other one, the one who's trying not to have any debt, he is not going to want to share his life support just to be able to develop up the largest stockpile of cash he can so he can actually do things with it. And just allow his ally to take on extra debt in order to compensate and make that extra money. At least that's how I interpret things early on. Having a look at what these players are actually doing, you can see that Saberman here has gone for the most basic of strategies so far, and it seems to be working out rather well for him. For whatever reason, steel is being heavily consumed this game, I suppose from our 2 robots just flying through upgrades as fast as they possibly can. So all of these steel mills have proven to be quite effective, and I would actually be kind of surprised if we don't see this hacker array start shorting steel very, very, very soon. Hacker array is so much more interesting in the scavenger against non-scavenger matchup, simply because of the way steel and iron are going to interact with the hacker array and the way carbon is going to interact with the hacker array. That one went a bit cheap, auction away for $4,000. Definitely should have been fought for more than that. Gameslayer obviously didn't want the auction, as he's relying on not having access to, or not being able to utilize debt, really. He needs to make sure he has no debt, so he doesn't want to take an auction like that. However, Saberman picking that up for 4,000, obviously going to be a pretty good thing for him. Alright, Gameslayer going ahead and hitting HQ5. In a lot of ways, Gameslayer is probably going to want to take over as the primary player. If you were around for last game, we talked about myself being the primary player and PB Head being the support player. And so Gameslayer is likely going to take over as the primary player here, as he has very, very little debt. He has the Pleasure Dome down, and he already has power online. So he's just going to be making flat money from those. That will be difficult to transition over to his ally. It is possible to do, and it's not too hard. It just takes that little extra step of coordination that they're probably not going to want to commit to. So what they're probably going to want to do, if they can, is get Gameslayer to be the one to build an Offworld, if they choose they want it, and get Gameslayer to be the one selling down out of any shorts that they cause. But we'll just have to see exactly how that goes down. Gameslayer, as you can see, it looks like he took the benefit off of all the steel they had stockpiled right before the surplus. That is a good thing. Almost certainly. I don't know why steel hopped back up in price. I suppose it was this Offworld going down. But you can see they are taking that strategy. Gameslayer is the one with the Offworld. Gameslayer is the one pulling in the cash from the steel. That's exactly the kind of thing you want to be seeing. Now, they have a large amount of money sitting around doing literally nothing. They need to coordinate better on that. Now, Gameslayer, it looks like, is starting to take that for himself. That is important to keep doing over and over and over and over and over again. Over on the other side, we haven't looked at the scavengers too much this game. They're trying, it seems, to generally do the best they can. They split up responsibilities on resources. One of them has silicon and aluminum. The other has water and carbon. Very, very simple, straightforward. And then one of them has iron. The other one does not. Also very, very important. But as you can see, our robots have just kind of torn ahead off of their general power plus Pleasure Dome play. As you can see, this Pleasure Dome likely has virtual reality at this point, something we weren't really keeping track of, but we can see now. Already patented by GameSlayer. It has virtual reality. It's making $600 a second. To put that into perspective, that is just a little bit under what you might expect from a fairly strong Offworld market. Offworld market can sit around like 650, I believe. 630 to kind of that 670 range from what I've seen per second for an Offworld market. If it's a pretty decent Offworld market, like a pretty good one. So the Pleasure Dome is making an absolutely insane amount of money for GameSlayer right now. And that's exactly the sort of thing he is going to be looking for to try and close out this game. Now, GameSlayer doesn't necessarily know which opponent to attack here, as neither of them really is functioning as a primary or a secondary. Neither of them seems to be making an effort to be the one to stockpile money, right? Although Roller is the one who has gotten aggressive now, which makes sense. So GameSlayer has some options here. He can either try and just kill off PB Head now and then defend himself. He can just start attacking Roller instead right now. These are both pretty easy options for him. Or he can just straight up defend himself, push to a long game, and say, I have stock advantage, we are going to be fine. But right now, Roller is actually making an insane amount of cash, and I'm not sure from what, to be entirely honest. Let's see if we can figure that out. Roller was number 2. He has quite a bit of black market saved up, it looks like. Going to want to be using that fairly soon if he can. And I see, he does have this hologrammed boosted Offworld going on. So holograms definitely being used very effectively this game. And it's possible, it looks like GameSlayer did not identify that fact. So that was a nice use of holograms to maybe hide who was the primary opponent this game from GameSlayer. Now, I still think he is going to be just fine. It is now 3 headquarters to 1. And even though Roller has a very large stock number advantage right now, GameSlayer's stock price is so insane that I doubt he's going to be able to abuse that as effectively as he was like. Also, in a team game, it is very, very painful to have your partner picked off. Because obviously now, if we look at Roller, he is a scavenger player without any carbon. No carbon whatsoever on Roller. None. He's trying to make chems, even though fuel is very, very expensive. He's making glass. It's not all that valuable either. He doesn't have any water coming in to support his water resources. Just has that weak silicon and the aluminum tiles that are actually power at the moment supporting him. And so Roller is not looking to be in good shape at this stage of the game. GameSlayer, on the other hand, combined with Saberman supporting him, you can see Saberman now in absolutely ridiculous amounts of debt, realistically. But he doesn't care. Saberman's not really relevant here. It's all about GameSlayer versus Roller at this point. And all of these players know it. Let's see. GameSlayer only sitting on about 15,000 in resources, not all that much. Roller has a bit more total. He's looking at 45, but once again, I think the big deal here is A, this Pleasure Dome, which is almost functioning as an extra Offworld at this point. We never even looked at Offworld prices this game. Yeah, so probably functioning as about an Offworld at this point. Whereas, let's see. Roller, he just has the one Offworld. We can go ahead and try and take a look at that. There we go. It is getting slowdown striked. They don't seem to know about this. I don't think they ever identified where it is. They might have, with a spy somewhere. I don't know where all the spies got put down, unfortunately. Or who has been in control of them. It looks like this is unfortunate. This is 2 spies right next to each other. You never want that. Spies cover the tiles around them as well, from what I've seen. At least I assume they still do, because that would be awful if they didn't. Rather than the individual tiles, so 2 spies adjacent to each other, not really what you're after. And you can see GameSlayer has also been using the hologram to hide his Offworld, which I think is going to be more effective potentially in a team game than in a 1v1 game. So that is something to definitely pay attention to. Alright. From here, I don't want to call it over before it's actually over, but it's looking pretty over, guys. Gameslayer only needs to spend about $200,000 more dollars, I think, to clean this up, significantly less now. Whereas Roller, for him, it is going to cost him a good $700,000 to finish cleaning this all up. And so that is not looking good. Sorry, Roller has bought a bit more of his own stock, so it's going to cost Gameslayer a bit more than that. Yeah, now we're looking at like $300,000 for Gameslayer to finish this up. But $300,000 for Gameslayer as opposed to $700,000 for Roller. Gameslayer has extra territory. He has Saberman backing him up. I don't see how Roller ends up pulling this one out at the end of the day. And I think Gameslayer and Saberman are going to be the pair that ends up taking this. Teammate automatically gets the stock when you buy them now. Yeah. Off topic. Let's go ahead and look through chat real quick while we wait for this one to clean up. There's not a whole lot left to say about this one, honestly. Gameslayer shouldn't take this patent. He doesn't need it. He's not going to get a whole lot of anything out of it. It's just cost him $9,000, and why would he bother with that? I do like Saberman's decision to go ahead and be like, this extra cash that I've got sitting around, instead of worrying about dumping that on over to Gameslayer, I'm just going to take the super duper ridiculous safe route, buy up some of my own stock. I think he should stop with that right about now. And now what I would like for him to do is just transition over to making sure that he is paying down debt. Just to make sure nothing too terrible can happen. He has literally just sat there as a steel factory for Gameslayer this entire game, hasn't he? That's a little bit silly. That is a little bit silly. But this is what sharing resources allows you to do. Gameslayer, I don't think has ever gotten up another Offworld, which is a bit weird. And what bug is that? I'm wondering what bug they're referring to here. I like how a scientist popped up over here instead of an actual habitat. That amuses me. Also, I find it amusing that this says like scientist or trainer or technician, so on and so forth from there to kind of like show what's filling them. But for the housing, it just says occupied. It's like, why does it say occupied for the housing instead of like family or something like that? I don't know, guys. It's just... I don't know if they can hear me. Probably not. Also, very interestingly, Gameslayer, they do have this hack array down, but they don't seem to be using it very effectively at this stage of the game. On the other hand, they don't necessarily need to. I don't even know what's going on from here on out. Apparently, Gameslayer bought a bunch of Saberman stock. Which is weird, because Gameslayer shouldn't be able to buy Saberman stock. Maybe that's the bug they're referring to. Like, when Gameslayer buys Saberman stock, it should just be Saberman stock. So that's very, very awkward. Apparently, Saberman has managed to pay down his debt quite nicely. I'm wondering if Gameslayer can actually sell that stock. Oh, he can. What do you know? That's dumb. So that's not how things worked for a while, and for good reason, actually.
New patent up for auction. Bidding will begin at...
Thank you for that, Yezo. This is why I value your contributions in my chat and why I've missed you while you've been gone. Just that right there. Roller's going to take perpetual motion. That shouldn't matter in any way. Gameslayer should be very, very close to cleaning this up. He has more than enough money at this point, and he is going to go ahead and finally take it. I don't know if I like the U1 like this. I liked the little zoom in, rotate with all the sounds of the steel mills and such. Maybe that's just me. I liked that. I liked that quite a bit, and now it doesn't exist anymore. All right. As you can see, Saberman actually successfully lost money that game, according to this. As did Roller and PB Head, Gameslayer being the only one to make money. Although this does count stock purchases in there. So that is something to watch out for, basically. This business revenue might be a bit more of a helpful tool long-term. So you can see that Roller made about 300,000, Gameslayer 1.3, Saberman 44, because that wasn't his job this game. And PB had 45. Although I think this is adding together debt with everything else, so that can make things a little bit awkward. Regardless, I like the basic idea of this summary screen, trying to make things just a little bit easier to read. Sold, auto sold, sold Offworld. At least they also seem to be rearranging stuff to make it a little bit easier to read. Excuse me, guys. That's my voice. This is what I'm talking about. It's just, it's going. Going. Anyway, I think the big thing we saw there was just, it felt like Saberman and Gameslayer had a strategy of getting to the Pleasure Dome. The Pleasure Dome being so important. Get to the Pleasure Dome. Gameslayer takes virtual reality with his basic robot power play and makes sure that he never goes into debt, so he can use the Pleasure Dome and he can use power to make money. Whereas Saberman was then just set up to just chain upgrade. And that was it. That's all he cared about, was just upgrade. And that was it. And providing upgrades to Gameslayer. So they had a fairly clear plan, whereas PB Head and Roller seemed to more just be playing like trying to play like one giant scavenger colony, but maybe not coordinating quite well enough to be competing. Maybe if one of them had pushed to 5 and then gotten an Offworld down, for example, they might have been in a better spot than with both of them pushing to 5, because the Offworld is just a bit more of an immediate investment of resources that can easily turn a profit than an upgrade to HQ level 5 is, right? Upgrade to HQ level 5 is very, very expensive, costs a lot of aluminum and carbon and glass. Whereas the Offworld, it's expensive too, yes, but after 1 minute, the Offworld is done. After you hit HQ level 5, you have a further investment from all the buildings you have to put down on top of those new tiles. So maybe if we had seen 5-4 with the Offworld on a 5, we would have seen them performing a bit better. That is definitely something to think about for these teams moving forward. For now, good job to Gameslayer and Saberman, and let's go ahead and see if we can hop into another one.